allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody make sure your microphones are on. Okay, item 1C, review approval of the agenda. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Move and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Item 2, consent agenda. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I entertain to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda passes. Caught up to the- All right, number 3A, the audience delegation. Susan, do we have any?
No, sir.
Item 3B, MSBA delegate report. Jenny, you got some wisdom for us tonight.
I don't know if I got wisdom, but I've got a report for you. Well, it's just, go figure, we've got the state assessments was the topic this month. I will say, across the board, the entire state of Missouri, unfortunately, is below. So I will say that to our district, that, you know, it's kind of, everybody is low. We're still low. It's better than the 2021 year. It is better. Last year's were better. The scores, the 21-22 years was better. But ELA is still a big problem, the English language arts. It's mixed results by different grade levels. Reading comprehension, all of that is still quite the struggle. Math and science scores have increased in all grades, which is excellent, but still below what we were at before the pandemic when we had all of the scores then. Social studies has also showed a decrease in the proficiency level. They didn't give a reason why, but I don't know. I think we can, if ELA is having an issue, I don't know. I mean, it could probably be something to do with the reading comprehension. But again, that's just my observation. There was the Commissioner of Education. She spoke, Margie Van Dieven, and this is what she stated to the district. She said, districts and charter schools across the state continue to face unique challenges during the 21-22 school year while working hard to focus on the well-being and academic success of students. Nothing about this past school year was typical, and we must remain vigilant in educating our students. And she urges everyone to review the data through an informational lens, using the key takeaways to shape how state and local resources are best deployed to support ongoing student success. I think our district, in response to that, did a good job trying to stay in school throughout this last year. We were in school, but she is right. There were still challenges because sometimes a kid had to quarantine, or maybe a teacher had to teach on a video, and then they're just, you know what I mean? It just was not a normal school day for our district, but they did the best that we could in this situation. And also attendance. I mean, attendance was also not something that we couldn't hold the students against. You know, we couldn't hold against the students with their attendance this last year still. And so that's made a big difference. You don't go to school, you're not getting the day-to-day that you need. Another thing that they discussed was the attracting and retaining teachers in our state. So the Blue Ribbon Committee met, and they had an art teacher, Sean Harris from Tipton School District, and it's R12, I believe. I didn't write that down, but I'm pretty sure that's where he's from. And he spoke to the committee and speaking on the salaries in our state. Last time we spoke, I think I spoke about this as well. It's still obviously an issue. We are the 50th state out of 50 states that are paying our teachers low. He mentioned that most teachers are having to get a second job because their full-time teaching position doesn't pay enough. And This not only takes away from their family time, but it also takes away, like, they're tired at the end of the day. I mean, I get it. I mean, I only teach a few hours a couple days a week, and I'm tired. So they're teaching all day long, energy-wise. Then they're going to a second job, and they're not having time to recoup, to go back to the next day, to really be the best teacher that they can be, for our students. So he just really encouraged that every district look at their salaries and see what they can do. My take on that is that thankfully our district does start off at $13,000 to $14,000 more a year teacher-based salary than the average Missouri teacher. So good job to our district on that. But I do believe it is important that we as a district to continue to take care of our teachers by showing them professional and financial support in our district. And then the last thing, of course, of MSBA convention, November 3rd through 5th, Kansas City. Hope you guys can be there. All right.
Good, thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also nice to hear that we're above.
The salary, yeah.
Yes. Sure, we're making some strides at least. Very good. Item 4A, partner organization, Harrisonville Public School Foundation.
Hi, everyone. I am Alice Roach, and I'm happy to be here this evening to represent the Harrisonville Public School Foundation. I just want to give you an overview of the work that we've been doing in the past year and some outlook on what we have planned for the future. So before I begin, I do want to mention that our programming focuses on two main audiences, students and teachers. So with respect to our teacher-focused work, we continue to support the Teacher Grant Program, which enables educators in the district to submit applications up to twice a year for grant proposals that can request as much as $1,000 per proposal. And through those proposals, we attempt to fund innovative educational activities or approaches that aren't included in the district's current budget. So since this program began in 2004, we've awarded more than $123,000 through this program. Last year, we awarded about $9,000 in grant proposals. The Advanced Degree Teacher Reimbursement Program is another effort. It helps to support the post-secondary or higher education of our district's teachers. And so personnel who are seeking advanced degrees may submit their applications 3 times a year to correspond with the higher education schedule for that reimbursement. Historically, we have predominantly focused on teacher-focused. So in other words, teachers who are seeking advanced degrees in non-administrative fields can submit their applications. But beginning this past spring, we did open eligibility to staff members. So those who are seeking advanced degrees, teaching certification, teaching degrees, and so forth are now eligible for that reimbursement. So since 2008, we have presented more than $37,000 in reimbursements. Another one of our programs recognizes new teachers with $100 Amazon gift cards. So these are teachers who are new to the profession and new to the Harrisonville School District. So we presented 15 of these gift cards this year. The purpose is that they can use that $100 to add things to their classrooms. We also continue to support the Educator of the Year program, which recognizes teaching excellence. So the individual who's selected each year receives a $500 grant that they can use for classroom expenses. And then this year's recipient was just recently featured in Homecoming Parade last weekend. And the last teacher-related initiative that I wanted to highlight was that we added something in December of last year for the holiday season. We did want to recognize teachers for the rough couple of years that, quite frankly, they have had. And so we did provide an Amazon shopping spree, so a $50 shopping spree per teacher. They could use the $50 to go on Amazon and buy items for their classroom. So I'm pivoting now to student-focused work. One of the long-standing programs of the foundation has been the Excellence in Academics recognition. Essentially, we award recognitions to students who rank in the top 15% of their class academically in a given year. Students who receive that recognition all 4 years of their high school experience are eligible to receive the Excellence in Academics Scholarship. It's a $500 scholarship that they can use to offset higher education expenses. And we did present 20 of those scholarships this year. 3 years ago, we did introduce a new facet to the Excellence in Academics program, and that is the Bill Mills Leaving a Legacy program. Essentially what that means is that 4-year recipients can choose a program or activity in the district that was meaningful to them or impactful in their lives. The foundation then provides a $250 mini grant to that particular organization or initiative. So the purpose here is that students learn to pay it forward to in-district activities that were important to them. Plus, we have an opportunity to recognize those impactful programs from the foundation's perspective. So we did disperse $5,000 through that Bill Mills Leaving a Legacy program earlier this year. We also oversee and manage many family scholarships that are endowed. So endowed scholarships or family scholarships disbursements this year were about $34,000. We had 3 new scholarships that we awarded this year. One was the Joseph Hardin Gwathmey and Laura May Gwathmey Memorial Scholarship Award for Engineering or Business. It's a $750 award. The second is the GM and Kathleen Allen Scholarship, which is a $1,000 award presented to students who demonstrate financial need and also participation in school and community activities. And then the third new scholarship this year was the Linda Dickey Memorial Scholarship. It is a renewable scholarship in that the student receives $2,500 in the first year, and that's renewable in the second year, so long as the student maintains eligibility requirements for another $2,500. All of those endowed scholarships were endowed by families. Most families either had some kind of connection to Harrisonville or Harrisonville alumni or something like that. The endowed scholarships are also awarded in perpetuity. The last student-focused initiative that I want to focus on is that in recent months, we have worked to fund more district grants, which are meant to respond to funding needs or projects that teachers or administrators in the district identify. So 2 of those recent projects, just for illustrative purposes, would be the $20,000 in playground equipment that we funded. That playground equipment is installed at 3 elementary schools, or will be installed. I'm not sure about the status. Okay, will be. And then $1,750 we approved just recently, and that will go toward purchasing some new equipment for streaming broadcasts that happen at the stadium and at the high school gymnasium. So to fund all this work, we do maintain several fundraisers. Perhaps the most top of mind is the golf tournament, which was held just last Friday. We had 86 golfers and raised nearly $8,000. So if you were a golfer or you know a golfer, please express your thanks. We also have a long-term fundraiser called the Major Saver discount cards. You've probably seen kids pop up on your doorstep to try to sell those discount cards. That fundraiser typically takes place in January, and we do split the proceeds 50-50 with the schools. And so in 2022, we raised roughly $14,000. And then the last key fundraiser I wanted to highlight would be the Employee Contribution Program that gives personnel in the district an opportunity to contribute to the foundation through payroll deduct. So currently, we receive about $400 per month from our district employees. Other efforts that I want to highlight that don't necessarily tie to students or teachers would be the Wall of Fame, which recognizes Harrisonville High School alumni who have gone on to do great things after they graduate. The Wall of Fame induction is kind of roved around in recent years because of weather-related issues and also the pandemic. But we have moved the induction back to like the winter homecoming format, whatever you call it now, that time period. In 2022, we did induct 2 individuals, George T. Schweitzer Jr., who was from the class of 1939, and then Dr. Julie Wooten-Gaddy, who was from the class of 1991. So if you know of alumni who you think would be great representations of the Wall of Fame honor, we do encourage you to submit nominations. Those are due by October 31st. You can find all the information on the foundation's website. A couple other items before I wrap up. We are undergoing a strategic planning process as a board. The purpose of that is so that we think about how we take a more deliberate and goal-driven approach to our work and our decision-making. So we hope to approve that plan in the next month or so and then begin to implement it later this fall. And then I do want to recognize our board. We have a terrific board of volunteers, 13 members who are community members. And then we also have representation on an ex officio capacity from the superintendent. And then Doug Meyer, I'm happy to hear that you'll be joining us as the school board representative. So that wraps up my prepared remarks. Does anyone have any questions that I could try to field for you?
Thank you for all you do.
We're happy to help.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation, information, and the hard work for the students and the teachers. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you all. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4B, monthly information items. Information report, any questions? Anybody?
Yes. I have a question about the ECC goals for the year. Is there, I know last year you had goals as well, and I'm not sure if they're the same goals or not, but I would just like to know if we could get a report on the percentage that is achieved on those goals.
For last year's? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. I had a question regarding the math information for the middle school.
Hang on, I have a point of order. Are we in the right sections?
Yes.
Scroll down.
4B.
Yeah, just scroll down there more below you.
Oh, it's down under executive. Okay, excuse me.
Did you find it?
Yes, thank you.
So the question that I have is around the kind of basically the on track versus one grade below, 2 grades below, 3 or more. I guess I'm extremely concerned when I see, 40 to 50% of some of the classes that are at least 2 grades behind, and I just kind of wonder what the plan is there. I can't imagine it's challenging for teachers to teach.
You talk about the diagnostic data,
Yes.
They most of them wanted to throw themselves down a staircase before I talked to them about it. But also knowing this is the first time we ever gave this test. It's our new curriculum that we implemented. So it's the first time we've ever had a 6 through 8 curriculum. We've always had piecemeal curriculum together. The teachers done a good job with that, but we never had anything that was really vertically aligned per se. But now we do have that, so we're very excited about that piece. Also, the diagnostic data, this is the beginning of the year, so we're not overly concerned about it just yet. We're not going to ignore it, but we're more concerned about in December what it looks like after they've had 3 or 4 months of this instruction with this. The kids that, you notice that on the far right, 3 or more grades below, it doesn't even tell you, some of those kids are first grade level. And so we are looking at those kids to go into what is called a math lab. And also, you got to remember too, they're high school or middle school kids. Sometimes they won't take the test seriously. I'm not saying that's every kid, but that is something to look into as well. This new curriculum has individual lesson plans for students and their skills. So on top of the work that we'll be doing in the classroom, they'll be working on these individualized plans, and we'll be starting working those up here in the next couple of weeks. So some of those kids can get those skills. Our biggest skill problems are integers, negative numbers skill, and we're really working on that. Multiplying, dividing fractions. Some reason we're still attached to adding and subtracting fractions, which is not part of our basic skills. But I don't know if you know math teachers very well. It's one of those things where, gosh, if you can't do this, I got to go all the way back to first grade to get well. We got to let go of some of that thought and start thinking about how can we get them caught up faster. I really focus on those small skills, and we know integers is our big one. And so we are looking across 6th, 7th, 8th grade to really push integers in our bell work. After school tutoring, before school tutoring, we're really focusing on developing those skills in integers. Because really, if you look at your number sense in algebra, which is the key for Mark's kids in the EOC test, which they struggle with, integers have been the biggest problem. So we're really pushing integers and really trying to get those caught up. Other things that we're looking at, I know Jennifer Beaver, I don't know if you've heard, she's applied for a grant for tutoring. I don't know if she actually has got it yet, but I think she has, and we're looking to pull some retired math teachers back into our building and start working with those kids individually. We already have a reading specialist coming in to work with a kid we don't even know if he can read at all. He's been homeschooled for 2 years, and his reading level is so low that we can't measure it. So that's a concern, and we're working with that kid individually. So we also have what's called academic shutdown, a CAS program as well, and these programs help the students stay on track, get organized, and help them stay caught up with their work. That tends to be a problem with struggling kids also as they fall behind. So we've identified them. We feel good about that. We're going to match up. We just got done doing fast bridge testing. We're going to see how that matches up with the kids as well. We haven't had time to compare the data yet, and that's going to be this next week. So we feel good about, we have identified them. We also feel okay, because this, like I said, this is the first time we've ever done this test. We're not familiar with it yet either, so our teachers are actually going to take the test themselves to see just they gotta get familiar with what they're asking, how it's connected to our curriculum. And then we're really gonna be looking at that December test as a big mark, to really measure how well we're doing. So we'll measure we'll do some formative along the way, but we're really, concerned, we're not concerned, that's what we're gonna really see if we're making any grand gains or not in December, so.
But then with the ones that are on track, do we feel like they're still being challenged so that they've got things that they're learning too? And I mean, we've got so many that are having challenges. Are we gonna lose some? Are we just gonna bring some of those down too that are already they're on track where they're at right now?
That's a great question, and I think that's one it's pretty concerning. A lot of times we have kids that are great, on track, and then we just kind of, hey, you're fine, go in and count beads or something. Thankfully for math, we have advanced programs in pre-algebra and algebra, so our kids are already going into those advanced programs if they qualify. So in 7th grade they go to pre-algebra, 8th grade they go to algebra. We have had geometry in the past, but we felt like we didn't have enough resources to continue. I have a kid 2 years ahead of the math. But we do have kids that can do high school math in our schools, so we try to push them in that algebra part. Also, those individualized plans are for all kids, not just the low kids, for all kids. So those kids who are upper level kids, they will get those individualized plans for them to work on as well for increase their skills also.
So do you guys know what the individualized plans actually look like? Is it like a course load that gets sent to the parents, or like that the parents are aware of what their kid needs to be working on? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so what I understand, Jen, I don't know for sure exactly what it looks like, but talking to my math teachers actually today about it, that's based on the diagnostic test they took.
Okay.
That program is individualized skills that they struggled with, and so it's kind of like
I got Logan's, I got Logan's test thing, but then like, is the teacher going to like say, hey, Logan, I need you to do these, like I need you to do this homework, like this is going to be your homework, this is until we can get this, like is that going to come to each kid, or like that's what I'm asking, is that what happens?
I'm not sure how it looks.
Okay.
I know that they have the individualized plan based on diagnostic testing.
Okay.
And from what I can tell, it's going to be running side by side with the curriculum.
So we know that we can tell what the kid's missing, but we're not sure do you guys know what you're going to do to have them work on it? Like let's say the kid's struggling in fraction, you're saying negative integers and positive numbers. So are they going to have coursework that's going to be?
Yeah, so what I understand is like,
right.
Like math programs that looks like, I can't think of it in my head. We used it years ago, but it's common math. Not like that, where they go into it themselves and they have time off from the regular core class work. They'll go into that individualized
and work on that specific those areas. Okay.
And what I understand so far,
this is new.
So far, that it'll be ahead of the skills they're working on will be ahead of what they're going to be going into in the units. Now, when a kid's upper level kid, I don't know how that's going to work as far as keeping the eggs already ahead, but it's supposed to push them and challenge them also.
Okay.
I'm hoping by next meeting maybe I'll have a better answer for you. Maybe I can have some examples for you.
So, like with the reading, you mentioned you guys brought in a reading specialist you said you had one student, but I mean,
we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
It's on the agenda.
Okay. I'm just asking, like, you're saying it's one student, but like we've got lots of students, so that's just what I'm asking about. I don't know. That's I guess a different area.
No, I'll be glad to talk about it. That's one idea that we have. We're also increasing the minutes we're reading in class across the board. We're also increasing our reading across the curriculum. So our science and social studies classes are going to be picking up those roles too as well. Our big our language arts, I don't know if you look at the standards, they're all the same. They just pick some classes and difference in between them. So we're really going to be working on drawing conclusion, inferring, and analyzing, which is 6R1 across science and social studies also. We tend to read a lot of fiction, which I think a lot of kids who struggle with reading, we need to push them into nonfiction and read for that. So we're going to be starting more. We have a couple solo units in nonfiction, but we're going to start pushing more nonfiction across the curriculum. I would wish that we could do that K-5 as well, but we tend to focus on fiction in the K-5 level, which really I think some of our kids struggle with that. And so we're really going to, with the real world learning stuff, we're really going to be pushing more of the real world learning reading as well.
Okay.
On your graph, you've got two breakdowns. So you got 6th grade, and there's a line that says like 7, and then underneath it's 15. What's the difference between those two lines?
It's probably gender, isn't that correct?
You talking about this graph here?
Yeah.
Where are you looking at?
The 7, the 15, and the 22. So
So
what's
what makes these different from these? This is your total. So you got two lines of sixth graders, two lines. What's the difference? What's line one and what's line two?
I probably would better.
Imagine gender, but I'm not sure. I just looked at the totals.
Okay.
I didn't look and see, I didn't even see what that was. I didn't think it was important. But
Follow up to what Emily was saying. I don't know if this is where she's going, but so you've got the kids that are proficient, and then you got the ones that are below, and they're mixed together in the same class.
well, not technically, because we have advanced classes in there.
Okay, so they're
So
going
let's
to be
say seventh
separated
grade.
out.
Yeah, so in seventh grade, you have your pre-op, which is you have to be advanced in math to do that. So those kids are in that advanced math class. And that allows us to have our seventh grade math class
Basic.
with kids that are more basic. So I don't know why we don't do that every class, but we don't. That's something to think about maybe. But in math, it's always been that way, so we just keep it that way. And then, like I said, we have pushed kids into geometry even, so we're willing to even push kids farther. I totally support pushing kids. I think kids should be getting high school credit in middle school, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion.
So is there any,
16, I think it's
are there any plans to hold any of these kids back a grade? I mean, if they're not
no.
proficient?
No.
So if they're not
No
proficient,
child
we
left
just pass them
behind.
on.
Yeah, no child left behind. You can't.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, if you want to talk about retention, I'll be glad to do it. When I came to middle school 17 years ago, we retained kids. We had 17 and 18-year-old middle school kids. It was it's almost 100% certain they're going to drop out of high school if they ever get to high school. My first day on the job, I had to talk to a young lady who's 17 out of dropping out of 8th grade. She had no hope. There was no purpose. There was no reason for her to exist in that sense. Also, no offense, but I don't want 17, 18-year-old men around 12 and 13-year-old girls. No, it's just not a good mix socially. So we do everything we can to get these guys caught up. And like I said, we have a list of things that we can do. Academic shutdown is a big one. We have our CATS program, which is kind of like an alternative program like the high school has, but it's more concentrated on our kids. We have our tutoring after before and after school. So we really work hard to get them caught up. And then if we don't get them caught up, we have summer school to get them caught up in math and almost. That's the best way to do it. All research shows if you retain a kid in middle school, they're not going to make it in high school.
So I'm going to talk, and Chris, you're doing a great job, and I appreciate it. I'm going to talk a little bit about supplemental education. So supplemental education starts early in the process. We identify title students down to kindergarten. So with supplemental instruction, we've identified kids who struggle, and then we provide additional time for those specific areas in which they struggle. So we call that a Tier 2 intervention. So a kid has, let's say, 60 minutes of reading instruction. If they're identified as needing help, we provide them typically 20 to up to 60 minutes additional supplemental help in that identified area later throughout the day. So, Chris is giving you some great examples of what they do in their building, but each building has supplemental instruction for kids who struggle. And that's part of our plan. And I know Chris probably feels like he's on the spot here, but
I feel like I'm on a game show.
Hey, you're
can't phone a friend. There's one or two behind you, but
No, I'm fine. These are great questions. I appreciate the conversation.
I just want everybody to be aware that supplemental instruction occurs at all levels, and each building has great strategies, and that is part of what we're doing. We're analyzing our data and determining what are the best strategies within that supplemental education to help those kids move forward. All kids are not going to be proficient. The average reading level in the United States is between 6th and 7th grade. That's what Chris talked about, text complexity. Students, if the text complexity is too difficult, students are not going to retain the information. So there's a point, no matter what, where they're going to be capped out. And so we're going to continue to grow those students. But Chris mentions a lot of issues we can't just hold students back. There's a lot of issues with that. Research does not support that at all.
Well, in a high school setting also has a lot more supportive ways to handle kids that are struggling. And then just the nature of high school with the credit system and stuff like that. So it does help with that. And it's just anecdotally speaking, it just was not successful for us. And we had kids that were driving to middle school. And,
I just wonder how we get this
Do you feel
to
like
this level in a middle school when they've come through so many grades already.
Well, a big part of that is if you look at the research the federal government has done because of the COVID, there's a huge learning gap. There was a learning gap before. That learning gap has grown even wider. We've got kids, one of the examples Chris used was a young person who, I think it's actually longer than that. I think that student was homeschooled starting in second grade. And now is coming back to us. And I had that conversation with the McEwen teacher today, that we have these students that are now coming back to us that haven't been in person learning for at least 2 years, and there are learning gaps that we have to fill in. So, unfortunately, that is public education. People want to take their kids out and they want to homeschool their kids, and they get tired of it in about a week, and then they plug them into some computer and think that's the answer. I have always stated, and it's the philosophy of the people in this room, that the best place for kids to learn is right here. It's not on a computer, and we're seeing some fallout from that everywhere across the country. That's why we have millions of dollars coming into our school district from ESSER funds to close those learning gaps, and so.
Do you feel like you're getting strong parental support for these when you address them with the parents when they've got these significant?
Yeah, I mean, we got some, Grandparents' Day we had the other day, we had probably 300 people. It was huge, and the parents were very excited. I think we have done a disservice to our parents of this last couple of years just because we've separated ourselves. And I think they're hungry to get back into it and support us. I feel like typically what we struggle with is, and I teach my teachers this, you don't call home and you ask the parents to fix the middle school kid. It's their middle school, they've had these problems since kindergarten, more than likely. If you look at our math data, a kid in 3rd grade below basic math, typically is going to be below basic in 8th grade. And so the parents have heard this stuff. And so what we do is we call home, we just tell them these are the things we're going to do for your child. We're asking you to partner with us if you can. If you can't, we'll get a ride home from them if it's after school tutoring. We'll find ways to take away roadblocks for support. So we'll find ways to support your child. We just need you to say it's okay. And most parents will say, in that sense, will say, yes, it is. I tried for 8 years. I can't get them to read. We'll do what we can to get them to read. And so we try to come up with multiple flexible plans for kids individually. But yeah, I think parents are very excited about it. We have a Veterans Day celebration November 10th. It's a big deal. I'll invite all of you to come to it. I bet we'll have 300 or 400 people there. And so they're wanting to get back in our school. They're wanting to get back into sport. We've had parents reach out to us on Grandparents' Day how they can come in and help kids read and have some of that stuff. So we're looking with working with Jennifer Beavers and Jill Filer and bringing reading buddies in. That's something new that we haven't tried. I know younger grades have tried it, but we thought, why can't we try it at our school? Our parents they're wanting to help and they're wanting to be involved. So I think for 2 years they haven't been able to do that, and I think they're very excited about doing it.
Thank you for talking through these.
Yeah, good questions. Jenny, I'll find out more about the individualized plans. I'm just as curious as you are about how they work.
I'm just asking.
But that's what the curriculum
Okay.
training I've been to. Thousands, something special, so we jumped on that.
I'm glad that we got that new curriculum though.
Yeah, we're excited about it. Like I said, I've been there 17. We've never had a
math curriculum.
math curriculum that we didn't have to create ourselves.
That's good.
And so our teachers are awesome. And so this is another way that we can help them. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. You guys have a great night. So you good going?
I'll bring you a pumpkin muffin. I promise.
All
I'm
right.
making it in a couple weeks. I'll drop them off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Any other questions? Interaction. Well, that's what they're all thinking out there is, okay, who's next? Item 4C, what's great today?
No other principal. You got no other questions for the principal?
They didn't have as much data, Chris. Next month they'll have a lot more data.
All right.
We like the data. It's very helpful.
Good evening. I am back again to do our What's Great Today segment. It's kind of like a game show. So, as I said, last month I'm going to try to give you 3 positive good news stories each month to kind of talk about and learn about. The first one I want to talk about is homecoming. And I think on the outside you all know what homecoming. It's the coronation, it's the parade, it's all of the stuff that happens on the outside. But I do want to hit on the fact that this entire event is planned by our high school student council members. There are 6 committees of kids
that put this event together every year. They have chairs and they work on all 6 of it's the coronation, the parade, the pep rally, the t-shirts, the spirit week, and the dance. So, and they pull that all off. And I think we talk about real world learning and happening in the classroom, but the real world learning also happens as they're doing these types of things. They're communicating, they're collaborating, they're critical thinking about things that could cause roadblocks on some of the things they want to do. So I just wanted to highlight that. And the parade from homecoming. You saw the parade, but also what you might have not seen was that all our kids, K through 8, were on Pearl Street, all together. So when I heard from people in the parade, when they came around that corner at Bradley and Pearl, it was like this excitement. And I think that whole atmosphere kind of encapsulates what it's like to bring your child here and educate them in our community, because our community supports them so much. So I just thought that that was a good illustration of what it means to be a Wildcat. The kids had signs, and it was just, and the teachers, like I heard from a 1st grade teacher that was able to see some of our 4th graders because they were all together in the same area, so reconnecting and having those relationships. So I just thought all of that was a good news story from homecoming. And I think the second slide has some pictures of the kids and their signs and the kids with their teachers out on the sidewalk. So it was just it always is great, but the parade is a highlight. The second thing I want to talk about, and there's the ATS float. They have a float for the first time. Yay! Harrisonville Cares Coalition. So I think some of you may be familiar with the Harrisonville Cares Coalition, but it's a community organization developed to improve pedestrian and driving safety here in the community. It started 6 years ago. It was kind of the brainchild of Chief Hoper. And we bring together a lot of different groups, including the city, the street department, the police, the schools, the bus company, MoDOT, Missouri Highway Patrol. All of those people come together to discuss pedestrian and driving safety in our community. We meet every 6 weeks. But the reason I bring it up today is because that is our last meeting that we had last week. And that room is full. It's fuller than it's ever been for a meeting. But the best part about that room being full is about half of those are high school kids. And there were 3 specific groups that were there that day. First was our high school engineering and design students, the seniors that work with Mr. Cole. They have to come up with a project and then find a solution to that problem. And they were bringing forward an issue that dealt with both driving and pedestrian safety. This was the access road behind Memorial Stadium between Distribution Center and back at the stadium. And they were bringing it to the group to talk through and see if it would be a viable project and get some ideas. Well, they were great, number one. And number two, I think from that discussion, they got some great ideas and great feedback. So I think that's probably what direction they're going to go. So they presented, and then Traction was there. And Traction is, it's a student group, but it's statewide. It's overseen by MoDOT, and it's to promote driving safety among teenagers. Their big promotion is Buckle Up, Phone Down, BUPD. But our Traction team, Court Devaney got up, he's the president of Traction, and talked about their plans for the year. But they are known statewide. With MoDOT in the room, the MoDOT people talked about how awesome our group of kids is. They won grants. They're getting another award at the end of this month that I'm not sure what it's called or anything about it, but they're just well known. And so they talked about upcoming programs. And then SAD was also at the table, and SAD's got an event coming up called Arrive Alive in October that you'll start hearing about. But it was just amazing. These kids were participating with the adults in the conversation and leading some of that as well. So I just wanted to highlight them as the second positive story for the month. And there's the 2 groups talking, the engineering students, Kale and Alex Barta and
Jackson Hayes.
Thank you, Jackson Hayes. And then Court leading the Traction conversation. The third thing I want to talk about is our people. So these were on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you might have read these stories. But if you missed them, I wanted to make sure you heard them. So what's great today is not just something I do here at the board meeting. It's a theme that we're kind of carrying through the year. So you'll hear these stories. I want to tell stories of the great things that people are doing. And so I'm going to actually read these stories to you because they came from parents. And I wanted you to hear them. So the first one is about Missy, and she's the bus driver there. I just wanted to let you know of a very positive experience this morning with the bus driver of 17. Levi hasn't ridden the bus from home, and today was his first. As the bus was coming down the road, he got very teary. When the driver opened the door, she greeted him by name and said, "Do you remember me? I picked you up at daycare over on Morning View." And the parent said that had to be over 2 years ago. Thanks are short in this world, and I just wanted you to know how much it meant to me that she was so kind to him, and her remembering him shows she's engaged with the kids. I have no doubt that this interaction eased some of his worry. So that was a pretty amazing story that we got on the first day of school. The second one is our new SRO at the middle school, and this is the story from Mom. My son had a very hard time transitioning into kindergarten. Drop-off time was the worst. He didn't feel safe without Mom and Dad. All the ECC support staff that helped with the morning drop-off have done an amazing job and gone above and beyond their call of duty to help with this transition. But up until today, it has been a very heartbreaking struggle. On Tuesday, Mrs. Sumner, the counselor, and I talked, and we thought if the resource officer talked to Luke, he might feel more safe. On Wednesday, Officer King met us at the car for yet another difficult transition. Officer King ended up walking my son to his classroom and chatted along the way. Yesterday, he met us again at the car. They made a deal that he would walk Luke to his classroom if he could get out of the car on his own. Luke did just that. For the first time, there were no tears, no screaming and clinging to Mom, and no terrified child to drop off. He gathered his stuff, took Officer King's hand, and walked into ECC. This act of kindness simply made my heart burst. Pretty good story.
Yeah. I want to tell you something about that. I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that child's grandmother, who is a high school classmate of mine, sent me that story. She was so overjoyed. His grandma was just beside herself. I mean, the word travels all over the state.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is. And I've done a few other stories I didn't share tonight. There's a couple other stories that have been on Facebook that they'll be in Connections tomorrow, the newsletter that I send out. I'm sharing those stories there. But we're going to be doing this all year long because people really need to see. I mean, those are just examples of great things that our people do. So that's number 3 for tonight. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was good. That was a good note.
Item 4D, donation acknowledgement.
Okay, this is a big one. So we can include this one into what's great today as well. So per board policy, the administration hereby reports to the Board of Education the receipt of a second fire truck for the fire science program. And then attached, you have the memo from Dr. Hickman with pictures and details. That is quite the story. So both fire engines fit into the shop. Not sure anything else
I
goes.
confirmed that myself because I had questions when I found out we were getting a second one. I actually found out when it was en route, so it's good it did fit. But we're extremely grateful to have it. It is far advanced than the current one we had. Our current one was operating fine, and we did the trainings and things we could with it, and we're still going to continue to use it. But the newer pumper that was donated here to us by Harrisonville, yes, it does fit. It's twice the capacity. It allows for different trainings that we weren't able to do. It just really is going to expand some of that training opportunity that we're bringing to our students. So we're overjoyed to have it. He already told me he wants to paint it, but we're going to tackle it. So we're incredibly grateful.
Yeah, it's an awesome contribution.
Item 4E, construction management update.
So Brandon was not able to be here tonight, and he's got one final kind of push that he's going to present next month. But we are in the final phases of the construction project. The roofers are moving off of McEwen, moving over to the high school to kind of finish everything up. It will take some time at the roof at the high school. If you haven't been by the high school at night, the signs are amazing.
Go by tonight.
Yeah, they are lit up and it looks really good. So my wife we went by there last night and she was taking pictures and yeah, they did a good job there. So it's good. So we're kind of at the end, and we will have a presentation from Brandon next month on kind of the conclusion of that. So that's where we're at in construction.
Very good. Item 5A, assessment and evaluation of district programs. Deb, it's your show.
Well, we're off and running at 17% of the year complete already.
Fiscal year. Not the school year.
Fiscal year, yeah. Overall, the revenues are at 8.8% of the budget amount. They start trickling in to begin with, and then once our property taxes or those monies start coming in, it picks up considerably. Comparison to last year, revenues are a little higher in August of this year because we received that Kaufman grant. And if you remember, that was a 3-year grant. We received $110,000 of that this year. Let's see. Expenditure-wise, we're at 19.8% of budget, so pretty close to where we should be. We're starting to wind down on our construction projects, so those capital project fund expenditures are lower than last year. Fund balance wise, we're sitting at a percentage of 33% for funds 1 and 2. And year-to-date revenues are over expenditures by about $500,000. So starting the year off on a good note here. Total cash investments are $15.4 million. $3.1 million of that is bond proceeds. So that by the end of the year, that will be zero. So, any questions?
Thanks, Deb. Item 5B, strategic plan update.
So just a few things. So Christy and I went to, well, before I get to that, I'd like to just say thank you to the principals for coming tonight. We haven't done this in a long time. I invited them back in and so we could grill them, I guess, and we started with Chris. So we knew we could take it. But it is a little daunting to come back into the boardroom, so I do appreciate them doing that. They are doing a great job of getting us off and running. So back to the strategic plan. Christy and I went to Warrensburg for a meeting on Thursday where we learned a little bit more about what exactly the state is looking for in our strategic plan that we have to turn in December. So we will be asking the board for some changes and updates to our strategic plan in the next couple of months. To talk about some of our focus areas, so the high quality staff. We believe that we do have a very high quality staff. Jenny talked about the pay, and we've worked really hard at that. I know it's disappointing when Missouri teachers look at the news and they see that we are dead last in base salary, and I saw in the report today that we're 47th in average teacher salary. So there's two statistics they look at: your beginning salary and then your average teacher salary. So neither one of those are great figures for us. And so, we've been just trying to reinforce the efforts of our board in the last few years to really boost up the salary in our local area. So, I really feel like the board has done an excellent job of that. And it's not just teachers, it's all of our staff. But it is difficult to staff our schools. Right now we are 4 paras short, and it's a very difficult area for us. And I know everybody's experiencing staffing shortages, but we're talking about people that directly work with individual students of high need. So that's Annie comes to my office every day looking for suggestions, and I don't have any magic suggestions. So that's, if you have any friends or neighbors, and that you know of that are looking to help volunteer a little time, we would gladly take that. So Life Ready graduates is one of our focus areas as well, and we really got into the nitty-gritty of it with Chris there. But one thing that I want to mention that our buildings have been doing is focusing on the priority standards. So something relatively new for the state of Missouri is that DESE has published the priority standards, and over 80% of our end-of-year assessment is based on those priority standards. So we've been trying to map our curriculum and link it to those priority standards. And it's a little bit of a challenge, right? Because teachers have they get this thing that, hey, this is my favorite thing to teach, and it may not line up with the priority standards. So trying to focus on those priority standards and do that crosswalk with those is difficult work. So we, talking about supplemental education, we do have on the plate tonight to add an academic interventionist. We do feel like that's an opportunity for us to really help students, so we can use the ESSER money to do that, to help fill in some of those gaps. One of the things that we've done, just taking a couple ideas that we've done this year in some of our buildings. So HES with title services is starting to push in. So we have title teachers who are supplemental educators who help with reading and math, and in particular, reading has been an area, so they've the focus. And so those title teachers have been, typically what they'll do is they'll pull students out for that supplemental education, but now to reach more students, we have the capability to push into classroom and provide additional in-class resources too. So that's been a focus area of theirs. Just some clarification on assessment. So social studies, just for your information, when we look at social studies data in the state of Missouri, it's based on one test. It's based on a high school government test. So it's really, there's not a significant data point there to give us real data. So when they say, oh, social studies is low, there's just one test of one group of kids. So it's not like ELA, which is tested 4th through 8th and then again in high school. So English and math are really the most assessed subject areas. I say 4th, I meant 3rd. Sorry, 3rd through 8th plus high school. Another thing that really, and I can say this because I'm retired from the state of Missouri, but it really bugs me about Missouri. So a lot of states will take their kids and they will give them what's called a norm referenced test. And so they will reference them to other students of their same age, and they'll give you a percentage. And many of us in this room probably took those similar type of assessments when we were kids. Iowa Basic Skills Test, probably most of you took the Iowa Basic Skills Test. We also California Achievement Test. There's different norm-based assessments, and so you would get a percentage, and you would say your X percentage rates or X percentage compared to the rest of the nation. And so that's norm referenced. Well, in Missouri, we decided to do standards referenced assessments, which is good in the fact that we believe that students need these specific standards to be successful, the life-ready graduates. That's great. The problem with that becomes we set the cut scores of what is proficient. And so we kind of, there's no kind of about it. We hurt ourselves. I mean, we do not help ourselves at all. So when we talk about kids being not proficient, we are the ones setting the proficiency standards. We're the ones telling everybody as a state that we're not doing a good job. I don't know why we would do that, and I think it is a terrible system. And it's once a year you give a test. And so what we've done to try and really focus on our kids is to focus on growth. And so, last spring we met as a district admin team, and we really said, hey, we're gonna look at growth from day one till day 180. We're gonna look at growth for that student in that grade level, and that should be the expectation. The MAP test does not assess growth. It doesn't do that. And so there's a new Missouri School Improvement program is a state accreditation system. We're on MSIP 6, and there is a piece for growth in there. But honestly, for the past 15 years as a superintendent, we've been talking about incorporating growth into the assessment, and DESE keeps kicking it down the road. And until that changes, we're not doing our students a service, we're not doing our teachers a service, and we want to look at what's something that's driving teachers out of the industry. That is something when we tell them they're doing a crappy job based on the MAP assessment and saying X percentage of our kids aren't proficient. We can use our own internal data and see where we need to adjust our instruction. And so we've really tried to change that and make data-based decisions in the buildings. And so our principals have been doing a fantastic job of that. Our teachers have been doing a fantastic job of that. It's difficult work, but it's really where you make improvement and you fill those gaps that we were talking about earlier. That's how you fill gaps. And so hopefully down the line, our state will do what's right by teachers and kids and look at that growth model. I have hope. So it won't be in my tenure, but I do have hope that it's going to happen. So I do, again, just want to applaud the work of our teachers, our administrators, our educators, in trying to make those improvements for our kids, because we know the gaps are there, and we work daily to try and fill them. And that is part of the Life Ready graduates. And so that is that focus area for our strategic plan. So that's my soapbox for now.
Well said. Well said.
Anything else?
That's it.
Any questions for Paul? Seeing none, we move to 6A, additional middle school football coach. This is an action item. We'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the addition of a middle school football coach beginning with the 2022-23 school year.
Second.
Motion, several seconds. Discussion. Questions?
This recommendation is based on the numbers of the large number of students that we have at the middle school, and we're basing it on, again, database decisions on that matrix that Brent established, and I think it's good. We did have a volunteer coach in that position. The issue with volunteer coaches is they come and go because they're truly volunteers. This is somebody that is there all the time at that point. So.
Will the volunteers still be there, or the volunteers step away?
We can have volunteers, but I believe the person was the volunteer, I think. Yeah.
Oh, he was volunteering
Yeah.
with, okay, I thought he was doing the high school.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Any other questions? Seeing
So
none?
I have a question,
Yes,
sorry, I guess I have a question. So they'll start getting paid if we vote on it now, but what about all that time that they?
Yeah, they'll get reimbursed.
They'll get reimbursed,
Yeah, 'cause
okay.
we pay them on the season.
Okay, okay, make sure on that.
Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Item 6B, academic interventionist job description. This is an action item. Entertain a motion.
I move to approve the job description for academic interventionist as presented.
Second that.
So this is a position we kind of borrowed the idea from Belton. This is we tweaked it a little bit, but this we can use this for multiple positions if we have the need. Currently, we do have the need at the middle school to fill it quickly. So it's important, and so this is what we can use our ESSER money for. This is ESSER money that will pay for this position. So
So that
You can
being
ask
said,
elementary.
yeah,
You can ask.
there's students in elementary school, so does that mean everything that's not a high school is classified as an elementary school?
So
Well,
3 through 8?
it can go K through 6 as elementary certified. So that's
So do we have to have something in there so
Or
that they
seven.
can go to the middle school?
well, it's 6th grade. So that's where we're going to be using that position. So
Okay, so the 7th and 8th at the middle school are not gonna get,
not with this. This is specifically for 6th grade reading assistants. This person.
so we were just looking at the math scores. So do we need a math interventionist
Well,
at
if
the
we
middle school?
are presented that option, then we can get there. So
So that's not what we're trying to do now.
not right now. No.
But this job description is for an event,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
I don't like that word, but anyway, it's for any subject. It's not just for math. That's just what we're
Correct.
going to hire
Just
for now.
Correct.
So I also wondered why it's limited to elementary schools
Well,
in
again,
the job description.
it's K6 certification. So.
But could it be some other certification so we could have it at the middle school and high school level if needed? What would that
We
look
could do
like?
that. It's not very common that you put the interventionists in those areas just because they're going on a bell schedule. So an interventionist does not operate typically on a bell schedule. So they operate on pull-out services. So it's just a little different with the scheduling perspective. So
Well, I would just like to see probably more than one person in that position at wherever, there's just a lot of need.
I don't disagree with that, and we've got the ESSER funds to do that. I think the needs are there, but you have to have the structure in place.
Right.
I know the person that is doing this, you have to have a highly skilled person to do it, and you have to have a specific plan in place. And we feel like we've got a good plan for this one specifically. And as we need more, we can do all
We
those
can
plans.
tweak it later, like once we get started, maybe.
Right.
Maybe have one
I
focused
agree.
on math.
Well, it does say with readiness, reading readiness, and math skills. So I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's in there,
yeah.
but then we're limiting it just
For now.
Just
to the elementary when it seems like we need help in the middle school too. So,
For this, Paul, is this one, and this is for the person that I know?
This is not for the person. This is
No,
the
this is just
job
the
right
job.
now. This is just a job right now. So that's a great job.
Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 7A, bids for Highland Street property. This is an action item. I entertain a motion.
I move to approve and to accept the bid of $35.50 for the Highland Street property with stipulations as presented.
Second. Have a motion, a second.
can we
Questions,
go over the
discussions?
stipulations?
Yeah, this one, yeah. You have some specific thing that you wanna,
What is it that they want?
They're in the letter.
Just want to cut a path.
Widening the opening of
Yep.
access areas.
it looks like the buyer's paying all costs.
Right.
So, the other thing I thought of is there may need to be some sort of signage that's private, so we don't have football parking, trying to
Well,
go in there and park.
I would say that's on them at that point.
Yeah, yeah, I just- it was-
So if they don't want people on their property, then they'll post it.
We might just make that mention to them.
Yeah. We can support them.
So they're not gonna try to come off of the front into the back of the property. They wanna open it up from the east side, which includes our
Yeah, they'll come on our property.
driveway. And that belongs to us, so it's not a public street.
Correct.
So we're giving them an easement to travel on our
Just
road back
access.
there? What is it that we're going to stipulate? I think
It's
that's,
just access is all it is. We've done the same thing with, if you recall, we had the garage over by McEwen. We had the person that built a garage off of, it looks like a street, but it's our property. It's the same kind of thing.
so if we restrict for some reason access to that property, we block off that entrance because we have tons of football parking, or we're not going to plow it because of snow. Are we going to be responsible for maintaining their access to the back of this property?
No.
Even though that's our street, we're telling them you can have access to your property through our street. But if we decide to cut off the street, then we're in violation of that.
Why would we cut off the street?
I'll just give you some examples. Maybe we're not going to plow it, and they
But-
want to get out that way because there's too much snow. Or maybe we're shutting it off because we have a football game and there's all kinds of parking. But any kind of situation can come up. Are we going to then have issues because we give them that easement and now they can't get into it? You see what I mean?
I don't think we're granting an easement.
We're not.
We're not giving them an easement. We didn't give that gentleman that built his garage an easement on our road over by McEwen. We're not giving them an easement here. We're just saying it's okay if you access it that way. And if we don't plow that road, that's no different than not plowing McEwen over there for whatever reason, Christmas break or whatever. We don't plow for that guy in the garage. We're not gonna plow this, and if we have tons of football parking or what, that's our property. we're using it for that. I see.
Yeah, they talked about the utilities company requiring access to the utility easement.
Well, there's an existing utility easement back there. That's not ours.
That's not ours.
That's a city utility easement.
I'm gonna doubt that they use our road at all, like for cars or anything, because the path is gonna be so small. Like you would maybe walk back there, but you're not gonna drive a car to get out of here through our back road. I think the path they have is gonna be maybe 4 feet wide at that.
And there's not a request for a filed easement, so.
Yeah.
I would think it's just access to like get in and out of the property or whatever they have to do, or
Pouring the gravel or when
Yeah.
or whatever.
I don't think they're gonna be driving cars, but it's gonna be maybe just access in general.
It's no different than letting everybody else drive up and down that road that goes in there to practice on the field or whatever they're doing. They all use that road.
Feels like all of Harrisonville uses that road during football season, just.
There is 10,000
5
people
o'clock,
back
yeah, it's a
there.
little scary. I'm gonna start driving the road there. It's got blinkers and mirrors.
Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 7B, Missouri Area Career Center Grant Approval Request. This is an action item. We entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Missouri Area Career Center grant as presented.
Second.
Motion in several seconds. I remember when Chris stood up there.
Good luck.
I'm asking for money. It's sometimes that's trickier. So there's an opportunity out there right now for just Missouri area career centers. There's 57 across the state that are eligible for this funding. Essentially, they have said that it's a 75-25 matching grant, saying that the state will be responsible for the 75, the district will fund the other 25 for whatever these infrastructure and construction projects are. They're capping everybody at a matching percentage or a matching amount of $400,000, meaning your project can go up to 533 in grand total, and then they would cover 400,000 of that. So they're trying to give out $400,000 in the amount, right? So a couple of items that have come to our attention that could really value an opportunity like this. One is going to be the replacement of our HVAC unit that runs and functions with the lower half of our career center. So the idea in the bond project originally was to, with the additions, just continue to use that unit. But what we've realized is the capacity of the addition of those spaces has not allowed for that to maintain and continue. On these hot days, we reset it every morning. It's kicked off, it's overworked, and every morning we have to go in, start it before the students get there and hope that it cools down in the process and that it stays on all day, or we have to go out and continue to do that. So that's not a problem that's going to go away. We've expanded that capacity and beyond what it was designed to do, right? So one of those projects that we're proposing here would be a replacement of that unit along with some additional HVAC reworking to allow for that capacity. That is one project that I can't speak a whole lot more to, but it was proposed to me through Brandon with New Group Novak as far as what that project would contain and the costs and things for that. So, Paul, did you have anything else that would be of value to
No,
that?
it needs to happen. That unit that's there is undersized and it's old.
Is it
And,
gonna solve the squeaking problem?
well, they've already fixed that, I
Did they
think.
fix that
Our
one?
construction class has been busy
I'm
on
just
some
asking,
things.
because I visited at that thing many times with my children, and it's like, I'm like, how do they focus?
I want you to circle back because it's better.
So,
It's
I will.
Okay,
I will.
Perfect. Different issue, but I
Okay.
think we may need to
I'm just
solve
like
a lot of
hoping that that's
We're
one
trying
of
to
the
get
things
rid of
we
it
can
all.
get rid of. Ask that one,
And a
please.
much better, cheaper solution.
Yeah, okay.
Something else on that one? Okay. So the other ask that is a little bit different, maybe it's more of a want, right? So currently at our facility, we're blessed with the renovations, we're blessed with the expansion we were able to have. But what that also created was a lack of ability to do anything else beyond our current space. One issue we find is that we don't have the space to house even a couple of our programs in one area. So if our student organizations are trying to meet, a lot of times they have to do that in clusters. So they'll meet multiple spaces and cover content for whatever the organization is covering. We have a variety of means where we could value from an outdoor classroom space. Right now we have space, we just don't have any sort of cover, any sort of structure that would help support some of that instructional activities that would be happening. So one thing we're proposing is the construction of a large pavilion out on our north lot. And essentially what that could do, I shared some ideas that we brainstormed, but there's quite a few more possibilities that could be out there. We're envisioning, obviously, the instructional expansion. Currently, we have a fire science tower out there, a live burn tower, which is fantastic. Days like today, it's really hot. We're out there trying to do a live burn. A lot of times, we'll bring in local agencies, both fire and EMS as well, and they support in those efforts. And we just bring cases and cases and cases of water because we have no structure, nothing out there to help kind of house those students and those volunteers. So that's one opportunity. We've got criminal justice CSI students that they're doing demonstrations and things in parking lots, and then they have to step out of the way for bus traffic. So we just don't have the capacity to house groups of students for a lot of instructional reasons. We're thinking for community and even other school activity events. When Mr. Grantham wants to bring middle schoolers over, I don't have anywhere to put them. I can't demonstrate a whole lot of things because the spaces fill really quickly. So one thing we envision is that capacity to be able to do some of those type of outdoor activities, weather pending, where we can do some more demonstration, get the kids into hands-on things early on. We envision some community opportunity there. The space could be, rented and used for expanding some of those opportunities or hosting some of them on our behalf. Our CTSO groups, my Aggies are overwhelmed at this opportunity or the prospect of it because they see FFA events being held there, competitions being held there, things where we, again, don't have the capacity for them to do that. So the structure would be a large outdoor pavilion. We're proposing everything from the concrete work to the electrical for fans, a hydrant for water, some of those basic kind of needs, and then a storage space off the back. Again, we are blessed with our space now, but we have more things than we used to have. We've got tractors and bobcats and attachments and things like that are amazing, but we don't use them every day. And currently they're in shops and taking up instructional spaces where I would love to be able to put them in a space where they're easy to get to, but serve more of that intermittent purpose, right? Versus just being in our shop and kind of eating up some of that floor space. So again, quite a few possibilities. Hopefully you're thinking of some others as well. But that is a project that I have bid at the highest estimated amount that I could get up to, knowing that I could always trim that down. The other caveat to this space that I'm hoping to really swoo you is that I don't want you to pay for the 25%. My intent is to go out and find donations to cover that. That's always helpful, hopefully. So there's a rendering of an example of somebody that I was speaking with, that what the structure would look like. The exterior would also match the updated trim and paint colors that we've got in the CCC right now.
So how soon do you think somebody would want it air conditioned and heated?
Well, actually, it's open air space. So
It's
we're
supposed to be, but now all of a sudden
right.
It's too hot and the community wants this.
I'm putting those really big fans in it. That's my air conditioning for now. That's my solution for that. So.
Like that at the state fair.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, I fashioned it off of that pavilion that they added to the state fair, the new core ones. So that's ask number 2. And then the final is a replacement of the insulation in our shop spaces, and I've added some pictures for reference for some of that. Again, each one of these shop spaces got updates and renovations done, but if you can see, well, you can see daylight through each one of them. So it's kind of falling down in places. I think it's duct tape. There's holes to the outside, and so we're in dire need of some renovation, just replacement there, right? It's just time that has it's used up life on the equipment. So I actually had the construction class quote me on what that square footage would be, and then what I should ask for to replace that. Hopefully you're accurate with that number. I bet it's
Just glad it wasn't last year's class.
So essentially what I'm asking tonight is approval to apply for this grant. The grant is actually due at the end of October, so I've got some work to do up to that point, but it does require the approval of the board for the plan, knowing that there would be a percentage of that matching funds that the board would have to also contribute into that. So, speaking to you all, that would be the HVAC unit and the ventilation, the ductwork, and then the insulation costs. I'm hoping to not have to ask for the pavilion at all. I don't plan to.
Can we use some of the ESSER money that was earmarked for HVAC? Do you have any of that?
We've already spent
We've
that.
already spent it. Okay.
And unfortunately, you can't match the grant with grant.
Yeah.
So that would be the only other part. Any questions?
Thank you for all your research.
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Now you got your work cut out for you.
No problem.
All right, we're adjourned. Item 8A, adjourn the open meeting and reconvene in closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, we need roll call. Yes.
Yes. Nancy? Yes. Doug?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Reconvene in just a few minutes.
Thank you guys for the time tonight.